It's more your understanding of how the system works. So, and I'm gonna say something really bizarre. No notes. You know why? I want you to pick up on this intuitively, because that's not gonna help you when you're with the kids. But if you get a sense of what I'm saying, because I'm gonna be using all different metaphors and things, so I'm gonna, the more you can get with me, and this is what I'm gonna start sharing, the more you just appreciate in general that your life is wall-to-wall thought. It's all thought. And now, of course, we can't see that 100% of the time, right? I mean, wouldn't it be nice? But I haven't met anybody yet who can do that, right? So, but even when I'm not seeing it, even when I'm getting annoyed with Valley Med and their bureaucracy, and I look at Linda and I said, I'm done with this, I'm sick of them, they're making me crazy. Well, in that moment, obviously, I am not seeing that frustration it's not coming from the bureaucracy. I'm in a lot of thinking about it, and I'm just not seeing it that way, okay? But in general, I know, eventually, what am I gonna realize? How many of you, even though you get caught up in it, how many of you after the fact realize, oh, I was just all caught up? Raise your hands. How many of you see it after the fact? Well, guess what? That's huge. That is huge. See, that's all it is. It's not that you won't have blind spots. We all have them, where we think it's coming from outside of us. But with what you know now, this is the good news, with what you know now, you can at least at some point realize, oh, I was just off kilter, I was in too much thinking, whatever, however you want to say that. Eventually you come back to yourself. See, that's all it is. It's not anything that you try not to have blind spots. How well would that work? Now, here's the thing, when you're working with people, that's a big part of it. When you're gonna be either with yourself or with the other person. So what that means is, you're either literally 100% present with another human being, or you're not. And it's not that you are going to be present, it's to realize whether you are or not. That's all, see, that's how simple this is. So, from where I sit, when Linda and I are working with this group of nurses, you know, as we're dealing with the bureaucracy, I am so not present. I am in my head, here we go again. I can't believe, you know, they take care of people. I'm spinning in old thought. Spinning in old thought. But eventually, I look at Linda and go, okay, I've got to come in for a landing. I know I'm just in it. And there are times she's in it. You know, one time we got an email, somebody emailed us, could we provide ice for somebody who had a knee injury, and could we make sure there's ice for them at the session? And Linda, I could feel her reaction to the email when she responded. And I'm laughing because I'm like, here we're working with nurses and they're asking us to provide. I mean, it was very bizarre. I could feel her reaction through the email to me. You have got to be kidding me, and you know, and whatever. I could feel her reaction. But then we laugh about it. Then we laugh about it because you know we just react sometimes. So that is the first thing to see. It's not how to be. It's understanding how the principles work through you. Where are you? What set of eyes do you have? You know, are you seeing everybody as walking states of mind, or are you seeing their problems? It's a big difference. So and some of you are working with very troubled people, and it's easy to get pulled in to all the problems, as opposed to you're sitting there and they're telling you whatever the issue is. And the first thing I want to see is, you know, I hear what they're saying, but what I want to really appreciate is how much meaning and thought are they in?
How much what?
Meaning or thought are they in? How is this affecting you? So let's take a reading student. So you have, how old are they?
8 and 10.
8 and 10? Okay, so what tends to be the problems with reading with kids?
Well, there is sometimes attention.
Attention.
Yeah. Focus.
So, yeah, they're having a hard time paying attention. And so you're with these kids, or a child, and they're really not doing the reading and they're not being able to focus. Now, what do you think that would create in a child who is constantly trying to focus and people are telling them to focus and he can't? They're getting frustrated. More than likely, they're getting frustrated. And from that, all kinds of behaviors will show up. I mean, who knows, you know, from acting out to shutting down to not doing it to whatever. You're going to get the full gamut. Well, when I see a child struggling, I want to know, I want to hear it from them. So, Johnny, how is it? How is it for you when you can't focus? What happens when you can't focus? See, that's where you want to start. Now, what do we tend to do with people who have an issue? What do we tend to do?
Give them advice.
We try to help them with solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying you wouldn't give him something to help him. You know, maybe he needs to be in a choir environment, those things. But his frustration is probably the key piece that's getting in the way. And the more, so Jenny, now why now, what do you mean by frustration? Because I have my definition of frustration. So you want to literally, you want to understand how he's being impacted from his standpoint. See, all you want to do is get an understanding with the person. You can do that in 5 minutes. You can do that in 5 minutes. So from having 5 minutes with the person, they come to you like in the airline, somebody's, you know, my flight got canceled, blah, blah, blah. So from where I said, the more frantic somebody is out here, the more I need to see, okay, where am I? Because sometimes I'll either get really present with them and like be there, or I might get into reaction because they may be presenting as rude or demanding. See, so the first thing I have to, in a moment, you know, and how do we know if we're in any of that? It's how you feel. So sometimes we engage with somebody and we have no sense of where we are. And sometimes I think I'm calm and I start engaging and I'm not calm. So I have to see that. It's not that I'm going to be calm, it's just to see that I'm not. And the sooner you see that, the better. See, and it's same with the kids. With kids, it doesn't take much for us to, you know, want to kill them. They can be exasperating, you know, because kids just do what they do. So for me, it's understanding how principles work through me. It's not that I do them, it's a knowing about it. And you all have been around this enough. You know what the deal is. You know what that is. So it's all about starting here. And from that, it's what you said about simplicity helps deal with complexity. See, sometimes people come up to me at conferences and they tell me their whole life history in 5 minutes or less. And then they go, and tell me what to do. And so I kind of chuckle on the inside because nobody can possibly handle any of what they gave, you know. And sometimes they tell you some horrific things. So I'll take a deep breath and I'll look at them and I go, well, first of all, how are you right now? And they look at me and they go, oh, I said, okay, that's the piece. That's it. That's the problem. It's not all this, it's this. That's what's making you feel so bad. Now, in 5 minutes, if I can get really present with them, and they'll say, but Cathy, my love, I said, no, I know that you told me all the bad stuff, but how you're carrying it is what's killing you right now. And they can hear that. Because it's true. It resonates. Now, I use myself. I do the Cathy thing where I'm like, sometimes they're so out there, I'm like, all right, look at me, come here. They go, what? I go, no, look at me, get with me. You know, especially if I have 3 minutes. And they're like, see, nobody's ever done that with me. And for the first time, they could feel me wanting to connect. Even if they're, you know, all over the map. But it's not what I'm doing, it's where I'm coming from, it's what's inside me. I know this part of me is the only way to get that connection. That's all I have. That's all I have, my understanding of this core inside of me, and am I connected to it or not, that's it. It's either one or the other, can't be both. Is that making sense?
Yes.
It's very, very simple. But we get, what do we tend to get caught up with? We start gearing up. See, this is the biggest thing that I learned when, I remember we were, in the state of mind trainings, we do the part 2, remember? And we talk about, you know, we would be talking to another person, and we asked people to not speak, just notice. And everybody's like, that was the hardest thing, not to talk for 5 minutes. And I wanted to ask questions, and I had a solution for them, and oh, I've been there too, and see, all this got flushed out. I said, well, is that about the person or is that about you? See, because when I first experienced that, here I'm a psychotherapist and I thought I was really there for my clients, and they had me do that exercise, I was appalled at how much was going through my head. Absolutely, I'm like, here I'm doing this for a living, and I have so much thinking going on, I'm not even with the person. I mean, I'm physically there, but I'm not with them, they can't feel me. And of course, with good intention, you know, this is how I was trained, and I want to make sure I get everything they're saying, and oh, this happened when she was 10 years old, oh, that must mean this, so you better check that, and my mind is all over the map while I'm with the person. So this is the key thing. Just where am I when I'm engaging with anybody? I mean, how many of you are in relationships? Some sort, okay. Well, this is so radical, and I don't think any other field acknowledges this. My experience of any other human being does not come from them. That is just a fact. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, wait a minute, Cathy, that can't be true. But if you understand the nature of the principles, I can't experience anything unless it comes through me this way. So even though I may be reacting to somebody, it isn't coming from them. So seeing that piece is really huge. That's a huge thing to see. So that when you are engaged with people in the world, if you're with them and you're just neutral and you're open and you're understanding them and you're patient with them and you're okay, then you're totally in the moment with them. That's great. And then all of a sudden, you're starting to get reactive, impatient, annoyed, whatever you want to call that. Okay, now you're in your thinking. That's all that's happening. And that it's just, that's all it is. Very simple. Very simple. But yet, we do have our blind spots where it doesn't look like it's coming from me. It looks like it's coming from him. So that's the first piece on this teaching with relevance. So now you're cool. You're in the moment. You're doing okay. Now you're listening to somebody. So we started with little Johnny. He's frustrated. Johnny, why are you so frustrated? And he's going to say what? What might he say?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. That's a common one. So when he says I don't know, what would you want to know after that?
I like your question, what's it like for you?
What's it like
What's
for you?
it like for you?
Yeah.
You know,
And he says I don't know. Well, okay, Johnny. So he's looking at you like, you know, blank. Now, kids, you got to get into the kid world, you know. And then I might go into, well, Johnny, are there times when besides reading, are there other times you get frustrated? And that might help get things rolling, because he'll say, yeah, when my mommy, blah, blah, blah. I said, so why do you think that frustrates you? Well, because mommy, and now you see, so you're just kind of fumbling around to get a place where you can get his thinking about why he's experiencing frustration. Eventually, what do you want him to see for himself? Eventually.
Where his frustration is coming from.
You want him to see where it's coming from. And how you do that, see, that's where your creativity comes in. I worked with this young girl who was, her file was this thick. The intake form was scary. They had her diagnosed, what do they call that? Antisocial. Yeah, the real bad one for a kid. They didn't have that in there, but they might as well have put it in. But they had her, she was biting people, fighting people, she's this little girl. Borderline. They didn't have that in there. But they had this other stuff. And so my supervisor said, well, you're gonna work with this kid. And I'm like, I've never worked with kids. And then I read the file, I'm like, do I really have to do this? And he said, no, you've gotta do it. You've gotta get experience working with kids. This is a traditional supervision in an MFT program. So I'm like, okay. And so she showed up, and it was funny because she looked like a little angel. And I'm like, is this the same kid in the intake form? And then it dawned on me, oh, she's on a lot of medication. See, then it dawned on me she's on a lot of medication. I could tell. So I sat with her week after week after week. She never said a word. And every week I'd go report to my supervisor, so how's it going? Well, we're playing games. Well, anything happening? Well, no. She's not talking. Well, and I could feel this pressure, but I knew, just hang in there. I didn't know what else to do. So we were playing a game. It was called Splat. She loved, every time she'd come in, you know, where's the game? Where, you know. So one day it shows up finally. She shows up and she comes into the room and she is angry. And I'm like, oh, here it comes. This is what they're talking about. And I'm like, it was amazing. She was like that. What is that movie where the kid's possessed? That's what it looked like. I'm like, oh my God. It was like this complete, you know, and I'm like, okay. So she and I said, well, so what happened? What's going on? And she said, my mommy makes me so mad, and my mommy. So I'm like, okay, mommy makes you mad, okay. And I said, well, you know, maybe it's because we have the bugs and you get to splat the bugs. I said, well, maybe it's because you have all these buggy thoughts. That's all I said to her about mommy. She says, yes, mommy, she was just mad. So she calmed down because she liked playing the game. And you move the thing and you hit a certain thing, she gets to smash the bug. It's Play-Doh, and she loves smashing the bugs. The next week she shows up, true story. The mother comes up to me and she said, what did you do? And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, she was like a different kid all week. I said, okay. So she comes in, we're playing, and I said, so how's it going with your mom? Well, you know, I still get mad at my mom. She still makes me mad. But you know what? I just slapped those buggy thoughts away.
Whoa.
That's what she told me. See, in her mind, she used the game to splat out the thoughts, and all of a sudden, she's not doing what she was doing. And I just wanted to break down crying. I just couldn't believe it. And she had an insight. She realized. Now, that's kind of an extreme case, but do you see what I'm saying? I had to just trust that she had something in there that she could somehow catch on, but I had to make it relevant. So I used the game. With the kids, that's what, you've got to find out what is their world, what do they love, what are they into, because you'll use your examples from their world where they can hear it. You know, you might ask them, do you have your favorite hero or whatever? You know, you just get curious and engage with them on what they love and what they're doing well in. And then you go back to the, you know, frustration. So making it relevant is tapping into their world. So what I appreciate in terms of customer service, because we've taught this as a customer service approach. One thing I know is when something goes wrong with a flight, there are going to be a lot of upset people. And so by the time I get to the person behind the desk, I literally know they must be just maxed out. I can see it. So I realize me going off on them does not make sense. It does not make sense. But in a moment, I can say, wow, boy, this must be a crazy day for you. I've heard people when they say somebody acknowledged me, appreciated that I was going through something, that's huge. That's huge. Because my heart's going out like, man, I wouldn't want to be behind in their position right now. But I'm appreciated, even though I'm in the same boat with everybody else and I'm not happy about the situation, but I can still see her humanity. Doesn't mean I have to agree with that the airline screwed up and all that, but I can see her humanity. That goes such a long way. That is huge, and that's what you're doing with everybody. When you're with the kid and the kid feels you're on his side, you're appreciating his little humanity, his little kid humanity, they feel that from you, and they're more apt to, hear you settle down, whatever you want to call it. So it's really, first check in with you, where am I? And then what is it about their world? Any questions about what I've said so far? Is this something that seems difficult?
It just brings back all the experiences when we had the blind spots
Yes, yes.
and not taught with relevance or
Yes, yes.
opposite taught with relevance.
Yes, yes.
So, no, you just stirred all the memories
Yes.
and I'm just overwhelmed digesting it.
It's interesting, see, what we don't realize, because we're thinking beings, we're all thinking beings, we're just in it, but we get accustomed to being in tons of thought. And it's interesting, when you said you came in all messed up and you left different, all that happened was, for whatever reason, while you were there, a ton of thought came off of you, and that's why you felt lighter. It just comes off and you feel lighter. Now, you didn't do anything to do that. See, that's what's so different about this. There are all these approaches where people work on changing your thinking or trying to, dismiss your thinking or reframe your thinking, which can be helpful, absolutely, that can help. But if you just see the nature of thought and just what it really is, that in and of itself, it's touching that core soul part of you that knows this already. And as soon as you hit on it, it's like a ton just comes off of you. And then you look back, how was I able to be that way? You kind of like, wow, was I really? Man, well, and again, your level of understanding, and all that means is to the extent that you see life is from the inside out, to the extent that you see that, and you can't make yourself see more, you see what you see, and that's it. You can't try to see more, you just see what you see. That's what starts changing. And that's the mystery part, we don't understand it. I used to ask Roger, now how does it exactly happen? And he said, if I knew that, Cathy, I'd be a wealthy man. I said, he said, Cathy, it's a mystery. Why somebody could hear something and their whole life changes, another person sleeps through the whole thing and their business as usual. He said, we don't understand that.
Yeah, I'm sitting here, it's just that you guys think, you've been saying it's all about thought.
Yeah.
But by thought, I don't know how it happens, it's a mystery that you just said, but I'm feeling it. My heart, I can almost see it. It's like
Yes.
overcoming
Yes.
all over me.
Yes,
It's just
yes.
bigger than
Yeah.
I could imagine it because of everything that
Yes.
I'm hearing you say. And it's about, again, going back to what I said, simplifying
Yeah.
what I made complicated. It's just that simple. How does maybe we're just not meant to understand how it works. I just know that it works, and that's big.
And it doesn't matter, see, it doesn't matter. Somebody in the class yesterday, in the class I was teaching yesterday, one of the guys said, well, I heard this from another guy, and I just don't agree. You could just feel his like, and I said, well, that's cool. Yeah, that's fine.
He's entitled to that.
No problem. And I think that kind of threw him a little bit. Like, he would, you know, you could tell he wants to engage on that. I said, hey, no problem. I'm not here to convince anybody.
Yes.
That's not what I'm here for. So, but this idea, this is the piece that you know, how do I connect? Like when you work with kids and you have them for 1 hour, that hour can be extremely powerful just from your presence. You may not do anything. You may not teach one thing, but they will always remember that somebody really heard them, that somebody was there for them, and they felt it. That, to me, that alone is powerful. You know, and see, we think, I should do this, I should do that. If I didn't teach another day, if I never taught the principals ever again, I would be okay because I know my presence on the planet is enough. See, I'm not here to save the world or help change people. I'm here to engage people, to connect to people. And that's what I bring to the table. It's just to start. So if you're in your life and you have this presence about you, people, I'm telling you, you could go to 7-Eleven and they're, you know, in their job, and all of a sudden you're there and you just connect to them. That, it's a gift. And of course, if I receive that, it's a gift. Where was I? Oh, I had to go to Kaiser, and the medical assistant, she came out, she greeted me, she said, so how are you today? And I'm like, well, I'm great. Not feeling great, but I'm great. And she said, well, good, come with me. And she was in this upbeat, and so she's doing my, you know, the blood pressure and all that. And she and I just had a fun conversation. It was such a fun experience. And she was with me 5 minutes, getting me into the doctor's office. And it was a breath of fresh air. That was the first time I experienced that in Kaiser, let me tell you. Usually they're like, okay, come with me, and, you know, they're doing their job, and she was just engaged. You can feel her presence. And she had a spring in her step, and if you asked her at the end of the day how she probably doesn't feel burnt out. It was just amazing. She was amazing. And again, that small little interaction as she was doing her job. So that's the power. She was a natural. She was a real kick. And I thought, because then I had the thought, oh, that looks like it would be a fun job.
Yeah.
You know, now I'm looking like that would be a fun job to help the doctors get everything lined up and give shots and whatever else they do. And you know, it was the first time I could even consider it would be a fun job because of how she was with it. So
I think, I gotta say that, that's a real important point of all that I'm learning from today. That it really is connecting with other people, it's not teaching them anything. And
That's it.
If there is opportunity there, the wisdom will, you know, it'll happen, and I don't have to make it happen, and my only thing is to listen. And the comments or feedback I've gotten from people that I have been with, that is what they say. I really connected with you. It helps so much to just talk. And I would think, well, all I do is listen. I mean, and I know that, we teach that, we've learned that, but I really like the way you presented that.
that to me,
Connecting.
you're with the person. You're not in your head while
Right.
you're with them. You're with them, and you really want to understand them, even if it's for a moment. And because we feel like we want the whole world to know the principles.
Yeah.
And that's a great idea. I mean, Sidney Banks, that's what he wanted. He wanted people, to relieve people's suffering. He was all about that. Get this out there for that reason, because he suffered in his life. And so, and how you do that, he didn't care. You know, he did not care. But he saw all the programs with the homeless shelters, the jails. He actually came down into the jail to see the inmates. That's what he was all about. But he said, you know, this is what we call love. We're bringing unconditional love. That's what that is. When you're present in the moment with those children or with somebody, a customer or whoever it is, when you're in that place, you're bringing love to the table, to them. And love is just another description of this presence or this core, and because it's in them too. But, many times they're not feeling it, they're not experiencing it, but it's still in there. Like Johnny has this calm, clear thinking inside of him. He has focus inside of him, but he doesn't know that. But if you have eyes for it, see, that's the thing, you have eyes for people's core wisdom, you have eyes for it, even though it's not showing up. That's where it starts. They start to feel you. And how many of you have had that, where somebody's been with you? How about if we do that? That might be a fun thing to do. We did this with the nurses, but I think this might be fun. 2, 4, 6, 8, so you can do 3. Think of a time when somebody got really present with you, or really was on your side, or really was there for you even though you weren't feeling great, or you didn't see the potential in yourself. They saw that. They saw it. I want you to describe, how did that feel when you were on the receiving end? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to share that with your partner, and then I want us to debrief that. Because I think we need to start to reflect on what that really means. And the best way to reflect on that is when we remember when it happened for us, because it's happened for every person in this room at some point in your life, and you have had that experience. So do you get what I'm asking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So it's a time where a person was with you, and you were going through something, and their presence with you really impacted you. I want you to describe, what did that feel like? Okay? And I'd like you to participate. So you may need to shut it down for a minute while they do their little exercise.
So